Hi Alessandra, hi Aurora, hi Pancrazio. Thanks for
Ciao,
being
ciao
the
Eric.
host.
Hi, nice to
Hi.
meet you.
Pancrazio is one of our very close friends. I think one of the first person that Tommaso also met here, my co-founder. He has been like with us at the 44 Montgomery. I remember when we were like just starting Montgomery, a couple of years ago. And yeah, now he's here like sharing 10 plus years of experience like in Silicon Valley, like 13 years
Yeah.
that you've been here. So I don't know, maybe we can start about how did you get in touch with like Silicon Valley your first time, and how did you
Mm.
manage to move from Europe to Silicon Valley?
Yeah. The first time I think someone brought Silicon Valley to me.
Okay.
At the time I was in Milan, and
Which year?
it was 2002.
Okay.
And in 2003 we founded our second startup. But in 2002, a common friend, introduced me to Fabrizio Caffarelli, that unfortunately passed away last year. And he was a very successful entrepreneur in tech, because in the 90s he created the first and most famous CD mastering software. It was called Easy CD Creator, because at that time there was no large hard drives. There were no large hard drives. So to store a lot of data, you had to really burn a CD, a compact disc, a CD-ROM. And in the 90s, he sold his startup to Adaptec, a company that was in the hardware space, for 30 times the revenue, which is an incredible multiplier. And so with that money, he essentially enjoyed life. He bought a property in Tuscany. He started making olive oil and so on and so forth. And so in 2002, he saw this big shift in the world that was essentially after the dot-com bust of 2000. Things were starting again, and the big hype was on optical fiber, so broadband, no? And the United States were burying $2 trillion for burying optical fibers, which is actually the internet. The high-speed internet we enjoy today is thanks to those investments 20 years ago. And for a reason, the strange reason, Milan was at the frontier of this innovation, because Milan was the first city in the world to have a full fiber optic network that was big like the entire city. So MetroWeb with public money, and then FastWeb as a private company, as a private telecommunication company, very innovative. So they created this metropolitan network that was a novelty. And it was such novel that Americans from Cisco, at that time the largest corporation in terms of networking equipment, was bringing people using Milan as a demo showroom, essentially show city, to show what they could do with the beta versions of the Cisco products in Milan. So immersed in this context, Fabrizio saw the future, and so he started experimenting with using high quality video bidirectionally in over the fiber. But unfortunately, the internet protocols are very hard beasts to master, especially at that time. And so he needed someone that knew networking in order to understand how to make things work, to really use all that bandwidth. Okay, because at that time the problem was that you had a lot of bandwidth with fiber optics, but the devices were designed and calibrated for narrow band. Okay, so they couldn't use the big pipe that they had. And so because of my study at the university, I studied telecommunications in Milan Polytechnic. And so I knew how to solve all these problems by tweaking the parameters. And so this friend of mine put us in touch. So I fixed the things, and so we achieved to do very high quality video communication with low latency over fibers in a standard residential connection. Okay, so this was the big innovation that We didn't need professional, expensive connectivity. We could do that on a low-cost residential connection or office connection. And so this is how I started my collaboration with Fabrizio. And Fabrizio, being a successful entrepreneur in high tech in Silicon Valley, showed me the way to do it. So quick prototyping, spend a lot of time with actual users or people that are trying to do something. Don't worry about failures. Always personalize the demos, understanding the use cases. And so I started getting in touch with the Silicon Valley mentality.
Yes, because like before you also had an experience in building like startup, because like in at university also you with a friend of yours you co-founded your first startup like DNA. So you still like, you had experience, but then also with the contact with Fabrizio, you actually implemented something. And the question was, which lessons did you learn from the encounter with with the Silicon Valley's
Yes.
mentality compared to the experience that you had in that
Yeah. Yeah,
area?
interestingly, this is a great question because by seeing how Fabrizio was operating, I understood the lesson of my first startup that I didn't get at the time. So our first startup, we started it in 1996. So think about, I saw my first website, I think in 1993, 1994. My first web browser on Windows was Cello, and then after a few months, Mosaic. And Mosaic was made by Mark Anderson, that is very famous not only for the Netscape company that essentially was the biggest web browser and internet company at the time, but because he founded Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, which is one of the most famous venture capital in the world today. But back to our stuff. So seeing Fabrizio operating in the Silicon Valley way of fast prototyping, focusing on making a product, I understood the lesson why our first startup didn't really work. Because in our first startup, we wanted to take the internet novelties to the Italian companies. But we did it in the way we knew, which is a consulting way. So we were helping them to figure out what to do, what technologies to use, how to bring them together, how to select vendors, how to prototype their internal tools. But we never created products. We had a lot of internal software that was very valuable, but never packaged as something that could be bought, purchased by someone and used. And so when I saw him, that every effort was to create a product that we could package, we could ship, someone could use. There was need for a manual, a user manual. There was onboarding phase, and so on and so forth, support. I saw all the pieces that you have to have, even in a startup, in your mind, without dedicated people, without hiring people, and so on. But you have all these hats that you change on your head. Once you are market researcher, then you are product person, then you are engineer, then you are customer support person, then you are a salesperson. And yeah, I saw all these things. I realized that our first startup failed because we never delivered a product people could buy, essentially. And that's why in 2000, after 4 years, we got acqui-hired by a large publisher. We didn't make much money, and they enjoyed our competence because we built products inside them.
Yeah.
So this
I mean,
was the big lesson.
acquiring is that when you have an exit, when the acquirer is mainly buying the talent,
Yes,
so the people in the
yes.
company.
Exactly. When they acquire your company, the money they give you is just a ticket to get all the good talents in their company. And they are not actually buying the value of the company, they are buying the right to hire the good talents from the company.
Yeah. And even
And
like
so
in
like
terms of valuation, there is like a huge difference, right, between a product company
Yes.
or like a consulting company. So
Yes.
you mentioned your friend made 30x an exit of like of the
Yes.
revenue because it was like a product company. But if you have like an agency, like a consulting, if you do like an exit of that, of course, like the revenue are like way lower.
Yes, they paid maybe
Yeah, the multiples are super low.
twice the revenue we had. So it's essentially nothing in terms of valuation. While instead, if we had a product company, maybe we could have made 10 times, 15 times our revenue, because that product could have generated additional revenues or completed a larger portfolio, and so leveraging their user base and so on. So acquisitions can be of many types. Yes.
And does it work like this also now, or was something that was a mentality that worked before, this fact of preferring a company like product rather than more focusing on consulting? Like also,
So, like from
there
that
is a
lesson,
difference.
you understood that in the future, for your future startups, you had to build or provide a product instead of consulting. So it's
Yes.
something that you also adapt in your future.
Yes, when I see when I did all other startups or I see founders now, I immediately have the sensitivity to evaluate if the consulting part is tactical. That means that is useful because now it's important to spend time with customers in the form of consulting, or the product is not ready, and so you need to customize certain parts or develop features because you learn on the job. And so that part is tactical, or the consulting part is going to be there forever.
Yeah.
And so this means that the company cannot really grow very quickly because consulting doesn't scale. You have to hire more people, you have to put more hours and so on. So consulting doesn't scale. So the lesson was your core business must be based on an offering that is scalable, that can be self-service, and can also grow without you putting work on it. And so the consulting phase or the customization phase must be just tactical. It means that in the long term, it will disappear or will become a very tiny part of that.
Even the culture like changes a lot, right? If you're working in a consulting company or like if you're working in a product company, like the type of engineers, like the type of
Yes.
people that you have meet. So
Yes, the way you structure your hiring, that's a good observation. The way you do hiring, if you have a product mentality, you hire people that will build value, that will grow over time in the form of features and capabilities or processes, instead of getting people that will manage that non-scalable part. So hiring more people in customer care, more people for onboarding, more people for customization, because that is an endless game. You can't really scale on that. Instead, if you hire people that will build stuff that will increase the value of the product, then you will always have more and more value, and the speed will go up.
Thank you very much. And like, because you had learned these lessons, you said that you were in contact with the Silicon Valley's mentality in 2002, but then you actually didn't go there straightforward. But then you went there in 2004. So like we were wondering, how come, like, why you decide to go there, and what happened during this time, like from 2002 to 2004, and what was your impact with the Silicon Valley, your emotions?
Yeah, it's interesting because we started building our products and and we of course had partners in hardware and software, and they were all based in Silicon Valley. And because we were nobody, they didn't really give us a lot of priority in terms of communication and support. So Fabrizio said, look, this is a relational game. They need to see us. They need to see our value and our in creativity and innovation, so they will raise our priority in their communication. And so let's go and meet them. And first of all, the first thing is that they always want to meet you. Okay, so if you have something interesting, they always want to spend time with you. That's the first thing. Instead, in Italy, it's very, very hard to get an appointment with someone that really counts, because there are so many filters and so many layers.
So, like, sorry, initially, like you entered in contact with them thanks to Fabrizio, or you reached them maybe
No,
before
we found them as potential as technology offerings,
buyers?
and we started using them in our product. But without talking to technical people on their side, we couldn't solve our problems. And And that was interesting because when you have a constraint like this, our engineers found workarounds or even fixed bugs in their software. So thanks to that, that was my message. So I wrote to them and say, hey, look, we fixed these bugs, and this is the code we are using. So you could consider this as a patch. No? A patch is a piece of code that corrects the defects in another piece of code. And so we gave them for free. And so they say, oh, that's very interesting. So when we told them, oh, we are coming to Palo Alto, to Menlo Park, would you like to meet? They say, of course. And so we went there. It was June 2004, and we met with all of them. And they even introduced us to other companies that had something useful, and they introduced us with warm introduction. A warm introduction is when someone directly writes to the person you should meet and tell, hey, you should meet Pancrazio and Fabrizio because blah, blah, blah. They are super cool. You have to meet them. So a warm introduction is very valuable, and it's part of the culture of Silicon Valley. One thing I learned in the last years here is that there is a big difference between Europe, the East Coast of the United States, and the West Coast, the Silicon Valley. In Europe and the East Coast, there is more of a transactional culture, transactional approach to networking. Means that if you contact me, my first question is, what's in it for me? What value can I get from this interaction? And that's a transactional mentality. If I don't see the value, I will decline.
I don't consider you at all. Yes.
Or worse, I will ghost you, okay? Ghosting is always. Instead, here, if you frame the first message in a way that there is something cool, intriguing, interesting, new in what you are proposing, they say, tell me more, let's have a coffee, okay? They are giving you really 20 or 30 minutes, not that much, but they are engaging. And it's because here the culture is relational, means that you do networking just for the sake of the relationship, because you never know when this relation will produce something, okay? And another thing is, here everybody is hungry to know something cool, something new, so they can talk about it with other friends and other parts of the network. So one thing that I've been told by one of my old bosses here in Silicon Valley is you do networking when you don't need it, okay? Because when you need it, you don't do networking. You activate the network, okay? You pick the people and you activate. Hey, I'm Pancrazio. We met 6 months ago at Innovate. We talked about this and that. Now I have this. Do you want to know more? Okay, you activate the network when you need it. So when you don't need it, you do networking. So imagine at the end of the day, you are tired, you've done a lot of work, you have met a lot of people, and there is a meetup or something, an event that is at 6 p.m. starting. And then you have the dilemma, okay, what's in it for me? Why should I go? I have to take the car, I have to take the train, I'm tired, and you don't go, okay? Instead, the relational mentality is, I'm tired, I close the world in my office and I go to this because I never know what's going to happen if I get out of the building. Getting out of the building is another big lesson of Silicon Valley. Don't stay in your office, don't stay home, don't stay on your computer all the time, but always dedicate time, quality time to relationship, even if you don't know what's in it for you.
Yes, this is really different also from here, and so this was one of the main lessons that you learned there. And we were also wondering, when you went there, you also started a startup there with your co-founders. So we were wondering, how did you manage to find the right co-founders, and yes, what were their impact also in your startup that you've built, also taking into consideration these relationships that you've built there?
Yeah, in that case, they found me as a co-founder because they were very strong at building and technology stuff, and they needed someone that could do the research or do the roadmap or the prioritization in order to order their ideas and technology opportunities to make the product. And so in that case, I was the co-founder for them. But in general, people and relations are very important, because the most common pattern of looking for a co-founder is a technical co-founder, because usually a startup starts from an idea of seeing a need that is not well served. There is a pain, or there is a business opportunity because there is a big shift in the world. And so the business person now needs to find a technical person to start exploring, prototyping, and building. In that case, it was a technical person that had a big groundbreaking results in the technology and needed help to organize the feature set, the packaging, productizing
Like,
the
what was like the startup about?
oh, it doesn't exist. We didn't really go out in the
Ah,
market
okay,
because
so okay.
we couldn't find a market for that. So that person is now working as a great engineer at Google, and doing crazy things, but there was no market for that. This is another lesson I
Yeah,
learned.
in fact,
Exactly, we
I
were
was
asking about.
gonna ask you, like, what was like the main lessons that you understood from
The main
this?
lesson is, even if the technology sounds very cool, it maybe is useful only to a handful of people, and can live into something bigger, cannot be really productized as something you buy. So I learned that you need to realize this very early. There is an Italian guy here in the Silicon Valley, an ex-Google person, the prototyping.
Yeah, he
Prototyping.
wrote a book.
Yeah, he's great. Build the right it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember the name now, but so he wrote this book, Build the Right It, where essentially the lesson is, before investing time and money in building even version one of your product, you should spend some time to figure out if there is really demand for this product. He makes the example of the yesterday sushi at half price, okay, as a non-tech example. If you want to, you think that, oh, I think there is a big idea of business. I'm going to sell sushi from yesterday at half price, because there is a lot of sushi that is not sold at the end of the first day. And then he said, how do you do it? You don't buy sushi, right? You just take normal sushi, you put a sticker on it and say, this is yesterday sushi, half price. Okay, do you want to buy it? And you see if they do it. And what he discovered was an experiment done at Stanford, that, for example, students in a low budget, they bought it because they like sushi and they want to spend a small amount of money. But there are segments in those across those people, and the one segment that didn't buy was, hey, no, tomorrow I have an important test. I don't want to risk to have food poisoning and not go to the test, so I'm not going to buy it. So a first lesson is, don't spend your money to build the actual product if you can test demand in a low cost way, in a smart way.
So, like, you suggest to make surveys to how you can prevent that the demand for the product,
Yeah,
like there is the really.
survey could be a way, but they're very dangerous, because people, you can get a lot of false positives with surveys, because people want to be polite and don't want to tell you bad things, and so they answer in a way that is constructive and positive, and so you may have the idea that there is going to be demand. So in this case, this guy is did you get the name?
Yeah, Alberto Savoia. We can put it
Alberto.
also on the description
Yes,
link.
Alberto Savoia says you actually pretend that you have it, and so it's called pretotyping. Pretend you have a prototype. In this way, you see the people in the actual environment taking a real decision to buy or not. And then when they buy it, you say, hey, sorry, the product is not ready, but give me your information and I will contact you when it's ready. And
I
then
didn't
you
know
have,
that it was something legal that we can
of
actually.
course, of course. Well, you may have seen this on the internet when you see landing pages
Yeah, just with the waiting
and
list,
then you
right?
say waiting list. There is no download or buy. There is just join the wait list.
You're
Ah,
not.
So the
okay.
landing page has a lot of screenshots and functionalities and videos. Maybe those are from an alpha version, or maybe there is no version at all. It's just
Yeah,
a
especially
synthetic
like
way.
for hardware, right? Is more common. Like if
Yes.
you're selling something robotics or like an hardware. In some cases, of course, there are like scams because like people then exaggerate. They get like a lot of pre-orders and then they are not able like to deliver it. But yeah,
But how maybe you can prevent competitors to copy your ideas and maybe go out before you're ready with that?
That's a great question. And that's a myth that needs to be debunked. Okay. So, unless you have real intellectual property, real groundbreaking things in with very deep research, okay, and you didn't patent it yet, every moment, every time I have an idea, there are others, hundreds of people that, or maybe thousands, that had the same idea, okay? Simply because ideas come observing the reality of the world. So the fact that you talk about it doesn't really affect your probabilities. Actually, it could increase the probabilities of success because if you talk about it, first of all, you refine the idea, you get some good uh,
Feedback.
Feedback.
remarks and objections to test your idea. Or if your idea is really exciting, you excite another person that say, I want to join you, I want to help you. Okay.
Okay.
So talking about ideas is very important. Of course, you have to be fast. Okay. The other thing you learn here is speed is everything. You have to be very fast, and that's why prototyping are so important ideas because that make you faster. You don't have to wait for the complete product. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, is famous for saying, if you are not embarrassed when you release your product, you released too late. Okay, because this means that you spend too much time in refining things that are not really important for verifying the core value of your offering. So you have to
Because maybe
release.
something that you can do later on.
Yes, yes.
That-
Release a version that is usable and is delivering on the core idea you want to test, not all the things that are around it. Okay. You have time to do that. Also, because you're going to have a happy problem. If your problem is the refinement, means that the core idea is desirable, someone wants it, okay, and then complains that it doesn't work well. So you now fix it. But now you know that they want it. Okay. So test your ideas as soon as possible. And the third thing is try to sell to people that have a strong pain in that area, that already tried the alternatives and are fast at deciding. Okay, this is another thing, another big mistake I did in the past, trying to sell to the cool market people, to the cool market targets that are not ready to decide because they have alternatives and they are also big organizations, very slow at deciding. Instead, look at the swift, agile people that have that problem. Don't have alternatives and they want to buy something that is ready now. So in the example of TV Blob, for example, we wanted to sell our video transmission system to large broadcasters, okay, large companies like RAI or like big TV stations. But they already had a lot of solutions from their vendors, and they are big organizations with politics, a lot of layers, and they are very slow at deciding. Even to do a demo is very slow. Instead, a colleague of mine, a smart salesperson, said, why don't we sell to TV stations, small TV stations? They have low budgets, but they want to connect the sports venues, they want to connect different towns in their territory. And he started selling our very early product to them. And for a few thousand euros, they could buy a device that was costing less than using complex radio bridges, radio links, or satellite connectivity, which is very expensive. And so they started using the internet to transmit their video for the news or for sports. And so always do this. Be fast. Get out with a product that is good enough to test the core value of your idea, and then talk to people that are fast at deciding, fast at saying yes, fast at saying no, fast at giving you feedback, positive or negative, so you can improve the product. Don't waste your time with the big customers that need compliance, regulations, or politics to decide that. They will come later, next few years. But start with customers that understand your stuff, they want it, and they are quick at deciding.
And did you use like a specific narratives to reach the people that you wanted to target for your startup? And also, if being actually there in the places that had the problems that you wanted to tackle was also important or not, because sometimes founders have ideas, but they actually have never experienced the need that they wanted to solve. So also we
Yeah,
want.
that's a very good observation. The narrative is very important because think about it. When you are in an early stage, the narrative is all you have because you don't have a product, you don't have a co-founder, you don't have anything. The narrative is the only thing you have. And I like I tried many narratives in these years, and I made a lot of mistakes in that too. The first narrative that we all do as builders is we start talking about our products, our features, okay? But that doesn't work. The narrative I like is the one that starts either describing a big change in the world, a big shift, and highlighting the pioneers that are already doing things in the new way, and then introducing the solution that you think about it to allow you, the person I'm trying to sell to do like the pioneers, like the successful ones. So one type of narrative is to describe how the market is changing, what are the new challenges, and then the fact that some are already riding that wave, and you have the tools to allow the person to do the same thing. So to be like the winners. That's one narrative. Another narrative can be simply to
Also, maybe
talk.
if it's another field, these pioneers are doing something that is completely different from what you're doing. So, like you
Yes,
take,
but in a different way. Yes. Think about when 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there was the big shift from buying things transactionally, like renting a movie or buying a DVD, into the subscription world. So you subscribe with a monthly fee to access a big thing, like a big catalog. Okay. That was a novelty. Okay.
Like
Before that,
Netflix in
like
2007.
Netflix. Yes, like before Netflix, you didn't buy for a subscription. You rented the movie to keep it for 3 days or watch in 72 hours or whatever. And so everybody was looking at that business model. Okay, but after Netflix and other things, um, a company said, "Hey, look, managing subscriptions is complicated because you have credit cards that expire and they stop paying the subscription, or people cancel and you don't notice because they cancel on the credit card side without telling you, and so the credit card stops paying you and you don't know why." Okay, and you have to spend a lot of time to do that, but it's too late because once a person decides to stop paying for a subscription, you can't recover. So a lot of money involved in that. And they created the platform to manage subscribers, and they took care of all these relationships and reminding to enter the new credit card when the expiring date was coming. So think about all these details. And they started selling this to everybody that wanted to make a business with a subscription. Okay. And this is essentially starting from an observation that the world is shifting towards subscriptions. The winners are building their platform inside their companies, okay, with internal software because they can afford it. They have a lot of engineers. But what about you? You small company, you don't have engineers to build these things. And it's not your core business. So it would be stupid to hire an engineer to build something that is not your core innovation. Okay. So here is the platform. We are going to do this. And so Stripe and many others started innovating in that. So Stripe started in the transactional world with e-commerce, And then when subscriptions arrived, Stripe improved also the features to support subscriptions and many others. Okay,
We even
so
use
this
it for
is a
our
way.
company, Stripe. It's like
Yeah.
very
So this is really important. In the narrative, you have to start either with narrating the big shift in the world that you are observing, or with the problem that they already may have. So they say, "Hey, look, this guy really understands my situation." So anything you can say after that is in some way legitimated by the fact that you understand them and they feel like you understand their struggle, their daily problem. So when you introduce your solution, you are already validated that you know what they are going through. And so your solution must be really done well for my needs. So it's important in the narrative to always lead with the big shift of the world, or at least a problem, a struggle that resonates with them.
Okay, really, that was super valuable. Thank you for sharing this with us. And we also think that another important topic is how you started like working there. So like you had a green card, like how you were able to start there in
Yeah.
San Francisco.
Yeah, when in 2011 a company from the Silicon Valley acquired TV Blog, the company that Francesco and I and Mario co-founded, um, they told me, "Hey, why don't you come here and help us with the transition after the acquisition?" And doing that, they made me a visa, a working visa. It's called H-1B. That means that you can now work, but you need to work with a sponsorship company that says, "I want this guy, I want this person because he or she has competence that I need and I cannot find here." So they got me the visa.
And today there is also
Yeah.
the lottery, right, for the H1B.
Yeah, there is also a lottery that you can apply for, yes. And if you get extracted, then you go into the process of getting the visa. At the time, I was lucky because H1B was targeted mostly by Indian people because there was a need for a lot of engineers, and America um, couldn't really produce enough engineers for the need. And so they were invited from India. Um, and so, being Italian, I was in another quota, so-called quota. And so this means that if I were an Indian person, I would have waited maybe 1 year or 2 years or 4 years to get the visa. But being an Italian, and there was not much people coming from Italy with H1B, I got lucky. And so in 4 months, I got my visa. That was very cool. So I will always be grateful to this company to Minerva and Mauro Bonomi that got me this visa. And this was how I started. The interesting thing is that when I got here, they told me, "Okay, Pancrazio, until now you've been the tech guy and you did a great job, but we don't need a tech guy because we have a lot of tech guys here." And they were very good at software. And so we need product managers. So I say, "I don't know what product management is." And they say, "Don't worry, we're going to teach you." And they did. And so they helped me hire designers and organize the development process with agile processes with the teams. I had a team in San Jose, a team in Bulgaria, and I also kept my old team in Catania. And I think some of them are still working for Minerva after 13 years. Think about it. And so this was my landing. So the first thing was I got a visa because the company wanted me. And the second thing, they taught me a new discipline, product management. That is what I still do today. And that was a really big gift because they saw what I really was good at. I was not really great at technology stuff. I'm not a programmer. I'm not a good technologist. I was a decent network engineer, but really what I enjoy to do is product management. So understanding the needs, translating those needs for designers and engineers, talking to customers, doing market research, making roadmaps, and also helping marketing and sales communicate the value of the product. So these are the things I like to do. And so they saw that in me, and they also gave me the gift of indicating the way of the right discipline, professional discipline for me.
And what surprised you most about that new role? Because of course you never did something like that because you were more technological and that stuff. So initially, what surprised you a lot
Yeah.
about this new job?
The two things that really I have in my heart is, first of all, it became part of the job to spend time with real users and real customers. And that's really the key. If you don't spend at least one third of your time with real users and customers, you cannot be a good product manager, because how can you drive the roadmap and the value themes and explain the why we are doing things if you don't spend time with the people that will use it and have the problem you want to solve? Okay, that was the first thing. The second surprise was how important and vital are designers in this job, in doing innovation and bringing products to real people. So until then, for me, a designer was relegated in a very small corner of visual interaction, interaction design, visual design, aesthetics, branding. And instead, here I discovered that was just the tip of the iceberg. The biggest value of a designer is into interacting with people, seeing them in their natural environment, and documenting how they try to do the things they're trying to do and where their struggles are. Okay, just to give you an example, without going high tech, if you want to design signs for an airport, okay, you have to go to the airport and you have to shadow people trying to get to a toilet, or trying to get to the next gate, or trying to understand how to get something to eat before going, or how to get a shower, or where to pray because you have the prayer at the same specific time and you want to have a quiet place to pray. Okay, if you don't look at people and you understand a list of all these goals and where they get stuck when they look for a praying room or a toilet or a way to change your baby, you will never understand that. So designers are the perfect people to document that and also highlight the opportunities to explore in order to create value and better solutions for those people. And that's where a product manager gets in looking at that, looking at the context documented by the designer, and looking at the opportunities, and then evaluating those opportunities from other two perspectives. Feasibility, so are we able to do this, or is just magic? Okay. And the second thing is this viable for a business? Can we make a business out of it? Okay, can we sell it at a price? Can we package in the right way? Can we distribute in a way that we can do it? Is this legal? Is this ethical? Or is this has this enough margins to create a business on this? And so you see the value, the feasibility, and the business viability. And so the product manager is really about this. So the two big surprises were this: spending a lot of time with people that had the problem, and spending a lot of time with designers that really were the missing link in my chain.
What were like the essential skills that think make you also thrive in this new role that you had? Because you were in the tech sector and then you had to shift to product manager. What do you think made you able to
Mhm.
understand these aspects that you have told us about? Also, for young people, maybe they want to become in the future product manager and maybe don't have that background in the tech sector. Do you think they could still be able to do that, or do you believe that experience also in a more practical engineering subject is essential to thrive in what you're doing right now?
Yeah, great question. Let me start from the end. Um, the technical background, I think I know a lot of product managers, and let's say two-thirds come from technical background and one-third doesn't, from other backgrounds. I could say that with statistical evidence that uh, having a technical background helps a product manager manage the feasibility part, the feasibility pillar, and also the relationships with engineers, because the product manager can understand that things are hard, things are difficult, takes time to do, and can also give constructive feedback when something doesn't work as expected. So that can help in that side. But the other two pillars are also important. So the value part, the usability part are important. So if you have a background in design and market research and is also helping. But also if you have a background in business, is also helping you with the other pillar, the business viability. So figuring out the business case of, oh, there is this need on these people, and there is this opportunity with this technology, but is it a business, or what are the multiple options to make this a business? The question of scalability is not technical, okay? In technology, scalability has specific meanings, but first of all, scalability is in a business model, okay? And so having a business background, even financial, can help to do that. So my idea is, and that's why in my consulting, my boutique company that I founded a few years ago, the logo is a T-shaped person that recalls the Leonardo da Vinci Vitruvian Man, but with another meaning. So it's a T-shaped person because I think that everybody in the end has a specific knowledge, a specific specialization coming from the passions, the professional years and other factors. And so you are very good at one thing, or you have experience in that thing. But then to be a good product manager, you need to talk multiple languages and to be a curious person in other disciplines, not only to do the thing yourself. You cannot become an expert in multiple things normally, unless you are really a good polymath. But just to have the right language to be understood by the experts, the subject matter expert in the field, to understand their answers, and also to respect when they say this is difficult, okay, this is hard. And so a T-shaped person is a person that has a strong knowledge in one discipline and also is able to talk multiple other languages in other disciplines in order to connect with them and deliver the value from them to another part of the team. So delivering value from an expert in so analyzing blood with the system to experts of the hardware that made that, experts in chemistry for the reagents for analyzing the blood, experts in UI design to design the user interface for the technician or the end user. So because the expertise in the core part of the product must be understood also by other parts of the team. Otherwise, the product is not going to become good. So I think what allowed me to succeed in that is the fact that I'm a very curious person. And I also like to read stuff that is not in my core discipline, just for the sake of learning it. And so this made me acquire the words and the language of that part. So when I talk to an expert person, they see that I am genuinely interested in their expertise. And I also I also do an effort to talk their language instead of asking them to adapt to my language. So I think this being curious outside your core expertise and making the effort to learn the language, the jargon, the words of the people you want to interact with.
Like maybe for people that want to learn more about product management, I think there are a couple of very good resources. So one is a Lenny newsletter that is like a pretty popular newsletter, especially here in Silicon Valley. There's also like the Slack community. So they also like organize meetups to talk with other product managers and everything. And he was like a product manager at Airbnb, and he interviews a lot of like other product managers, like maybe founders, industry leaders to talk about product. And then another one for maybe people that want to get a job in product management, I think is like cracking the product management interview, because it was written by the same author who wrote Cracking the Coding Interview. And like this is like more about questions that maybe the interviewer can ask you about product management, all the different like routes that are
Yes.
available. So maybe switching from software engineering to product management, or like maybe from business doing an MBA and then getting into like those product PM roles. So I think that could
Yeah.
be pretty good. Do you have, I don't know, other suggestions, like other
Yeah.
recommendations that you would give like to young people that want to
Yes.
explore Silicon Valley? What is like maybe the value of like staying here in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I think a book that is very valuable that I've read 3 times is from Yuri Levine. Is the founder of Waze, the mapping app to beat traffic that was acquired by Google. He wrote a book with an interesting title: "Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution." And he describes in every chapter describes different aspects of being an entrepreneur in high tech. And there is, of course, a huge component of product management for startups, which is something I really love, because product management can be seen as something connected to a large organization with a lot of processes. But in reality, the questions and the answers and the patterns product management deals with are even more vital into a startup, because the founder has to be aware of all those hats, including product management. And so that book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution, is also a good antidote to avoid a lot of stupid mistakes that are done when you genuinely want to build something. Yuri is great at warning you where the traps are and giving you actual solutions, actual behaviors. It's not just saying don't do that. It's don't do that, do this instead, and adapt to your reality.
Like, give us an example, maybe one error that you explained, also give the solution to, that
Yeah.
sparked your interest.
When I was a head of product at Vendini, we were building software for theaters to manage tickets, essentially. Okay. And when I arrived, I found a list of, my colleague was saying, our list of features that we want to develop is big like Texas. And because in America, Texas is the largest state. So when you say big like Texas means the largest thing you can imagine. Okay. And when I looked at those features, there was no apparent pattern, apparent thing. And so what I did was something that was really strange. I deleted it. Okay. Um, and um, and so my team said, "Are you crazy? That costed a lot of work to compile that list and to gather from customers and from customer support and so on and so forth." Yes, but that list is just a jumble of words, and there is no pattern in that. So let's go to customers, let's go interview them, let's shadow them, and we went into the box offices, and we found the actual problems that they had. One of the problems was found actually by one of my product managers. She's very good at that. She found, for example, that when people want to go to a theater, they don't go alone. Okay, they go maybe two couples or a family, or they go with friends. And so if you go with the family, it's normal to make one payment for the whole family. Okay, but if you go with friends, you only want to pay for your part, or maybe you want to pay for your significant other and not for the other couple. And so they were coming with multiple credit cards. Okay, so because only one person goes to buy the tickets, you don't go as a group to the pre-sales. And so they needed to split the payment like you do at the restaurant, maybe. I split the payment, and it was impossible because the software did not allow for splitting payments. So he immediately came with a feature that says, okay, not only we allow to split the payments, because we released the split, and then we found the problem that you cannot legally go with multiple credit cards to pay, because you are signing for someone else. It's not legal. And so some box offices started stopping accepting that, because otherwise the credit cards could do something bad and maybe revoking the license. So what she did is, okay, let's interview the people. And so she went to the box office and she interviewed the people in line at the box office. And she discovered that they needed a way to get reimbursed. Okay, they could use their credit card and paying $800 for the tickets, but they needed to be reimbursed very quickly before the credit card had to be paid. And so she came out with another functionality that was, you just pay for that and then put the email addresses of other people, and we're going to send them a link to put the money, and then we made the split after the ticket is being purchased. Okay, so she delivered the feature to do the split at the box office and also after the purchase of the ticket. And that was great because that feature wasn't used that much, but had two interesting implications that we did not think about. The first one was that our salespeople were using this unique feature, at that time was unique, in order to position our product as really innovative, because 99% of the features were commodities. Everybody else had the features for managing tickets, but this was innovative at the time. And the second implication was that the first customer that used the feature as a preview, after a month say, hey, look, this month we got 20% more email addresses of people because they are sending the notifications for the split. And they acquired the email addresses. So they had more email addresses to do their marketing operations. So our feature was not very valuable in terms of functionality, also because it was copied by our competitors in a few months, but generated value for the marketing people of the theater because it was generating essentially email addresses that they wouldn't have get ever, because you buy the ticket, you give your email address, you don't give the email address of your friends. But now there is a reason to do. So you develop the feature for one reason, and then there are implications in workflows that you didn't think about it. So that taught me to think bigger when we were analyzing features and creating families of features, value themes, and understand what is going to be the impact outside of the inner circle of the pragmatic feature. What are the implications of this feature for other parts of the company?
If you could send a voice message to your 25 years old, what would you say to him? Like maybe suggestions or something that you could do differently?
Release now and measure.
A very, very, very good size, actually. And like 2 words or 3 words to describe what is success for you. Like, what is success as now?
Success is when I see that the product I'm doing is really becoming part of the routine of the people I want to help. This is success. Is really that, because I believe that, and now I have data to do that more than a belief, is that revenues, economic success are a consequence of really creating value for the users and for the company.
Yeah, I
Thank you very
completely agree
much.
with this.
Yes,
Really, thank you very much. Was a really huge conversation
and
with
very
lots of
inspiring.
topics, very inspiring. So I
Thank
think
you.
that our listeners will love you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
bye.
Really, bye
Bye.
bye,
See
guys.
you.
Bye.